They may be a common sight on street corners and in parks, even in schools and sporting clubs. But the War Memorial honour rolls of Australian servicemen and women are a source of historical information that is too often overlooked. Now the Family History Society has brought a lot of that information together, publishing a new guide to the war memorials of Newcastle and Lake Macquarie.
To us, it's one of the most major projects that we've ever tackled in the 11-year history of the Society. It's hours and hours of work that have gone into it over a 7 or 8 year period.
The book lists over 16,000 names, gathered from 169 local war memorials. While it's primarily designed as a reference text for family history researchers, it'll also assist other groups like the RSL.
They are constantly getting requests from schools and from other individuals about war memorials and about servicemen, and this book will help them.
The Family History Society hopes its new guide will prompt other communities to follow suit, believing this part of Australia's war service record is too valuable to be lost. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
Amongst the sea of faces at the SCG were 3 living legends who played in the Australian team that last scored 400-plus runs in the final innings to win an Ashes test. Ray Lenmore was Australia's strike bowler in the 1948 test at Headingley. Arthur Morris scored 182 to have the visitors poised for victory. Neil Harvey hit the winning boundary.
I think the best memory was that all the English press said this is a great day for England cricket, that we're going to win the test match. So that when we won it, it was a great bit of a surprise for everybody, but it was great satisfaction to us.
Today's young fans may not recognise their faces, but they would appreciate the one-day tactics Australia adopted to steal victory. The centrepiece was a 301-run partnership between Arthur Morris and Don Bradman, a day when a 26-year-old from Dungog outscored the batsman who many regard as the greatest player who ever lived.
You're outscoring Bradman there at one stage. How did that feel?
Oh, I thought I was outscoring him all the time, Richard. I don't know where you got that idea from.
The team was later dubbed the Invincibles and ranks among the best ever Australian touring sides. Cricket's changed a lot since the Invincibles downed England in that historic match nearly half a century ago. But Arthur Morris says the 1948 team in its prime would have relished the challenge at the SCG today.
We'd have probably got him by lunchtime, but other than that, yeah.
Humbled in the first 2 tests last week, the Australian Super Sedan team of Bob Brewer, John Pine, Stu Robertson and Don McEwen came out fighting in Newcastle last night. Better suited to the heavy surface conditions, the locals jumped to an early lead, 10 points ahead of their American rivals by the 8th heat. With the visitors beginning to narrow the gap and pressure mounting, the Australian blocking tactics resulted in some extra conflict on the track. Despite plenty of protest from both sides, the penalties held, just adding to the race tension. Lagging by only 2 points as the cars entered the final heat, US driver Scott Bloomquist grabbed the lead. But Robertson and Pine walled in his teammate Charlie Swartz to see Australia ahead 37-35 at the checkered flag. The best of 7 series moves north now, with the 4th Super Sedan test in Lismore on Friday.
Butch Hayes was introducing some special members of his team to Falcon staff today, 5-year-old Roberta and 3-year-old Griffin. It's been a struggle for Newcastle to win Hayes' services. His old club, the Illawarra Hawks, fought all the way to keep him.
It's been a long battle, but I'm glad to be here.
The 32-year-old will be filling big shoes in Newcastle. He's been put on to replace Derek Rucker, one of the top point scorers in the league. Butch averages 22 points a game, but he says his asset is as a team player and he expects the Falcons' new lineup to fire as one unit.
I've got 2 years here to get something done, and I hope I do that. I'd like to get a championship.
And with footwork like this, how will anyone be able to stop him? Peter Ryan, NBN News. It's supposed to be the Aussie dream to buy your own home. It was made just a little tougher in Newcastle for the year up to last November, with the median or middle range for a house jumping 4.7% to $125,000.
That percentage growth is quite a healthy market. Other areas haven't been as fortunate. We look fairly healthy up here.
The Sydney market went up just over 1 percentage point more, with the median price for a house $72,000 higher. But Melbourne, Adelaide and Canberra all registered a drop in prices. The best suburbs in Newcastle for price hikes were the Hill, Merriweather and Adamstown Heights.
If property is well priced, well presented particularly, then you're seeing competition for property.
Local units and townhouses also rose in value, but by only 1.3%, with a median price of $120,000. But with interest rates on the rise, 1995 isn't looking too bright for real estate. The market is now expected to flatten out. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
With numbers steadily declining, koalas have taken their place on the endangered species list, coming under special attention from many groups. The state government has taken up the cause, this week announcing it will force councils to check for marsupials before rezoning bushland. It's a move welcomed by those supporting Port Stephens' draft koala management plan. Launched 3 months ago, the scheme called for public input. More than 80 submissions have been received.
The general response, an overwhelming positive response to it, and the majority of the submissions believe that the recommendations that are in the plan should be implemented as quickly as possible.
Port Stephens has one of the biggest koala colonies in the state. With a 4% annual growth in the area's urban population, the challenge for council is to keep both developers and koalas happy.
Hopefully the plan does provide a balance between habitat retention for koalas and it also allowing future urban and other development in the Port Stephens area.
It's expected a recommendation to adopt the plan will be presented to council next month. Melinda Smith, NBN News. It's a weekly event for most Australians. In some parts, it's even considered a national pastime. But the job is not without hidden dangers, especially when attempting to clear a clogged grass catcher.
Quite often we get calls to accidents with hand injuries from that. Other accidents have occurred where people have tipped their mower on its side trying to clear the clogged grass out of it whilst the mower's going. Quite silly. Another thing is people get eye injuries from flying debris.
The warning follows a serious accident near Newcastle yesterday. A 31-year-old Toronto man was rushed to hospital after he slipped and dragged the lawnmower onto himself. He suffered severe lacerations when both his bare feet were caught in the blades.
It's not a chore that they should just take lightly. It's a serious thing, and it's something that can give you quite a nasty injury.
It's during summer months that the number of accidents involving lawnmowers increases dramatically. Ambulance claim most could have been avoided if simple safety measures had been followed.
Wear goggles, a good pair of safety goggles, protect their eyes. Gloves when they're reaching down around the mower to pick up the grass clippings that they've missed. And safety boots, definitely a good pair of boots or safety boots to wear.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
After 7 days of intense sailing, the fleet of 90 was chasing Emmett Lazage today, who dominated the World Championships from the opening heat. Lazage continued his good form that won him the Australian title last week to win 6 of the first 9 races contested and only needed to take out today's opening heat to secure the world title. Pushed along by 15 to 20 knot northwesterly, Lazage enjoyed the fresh conditions and was never headed in the first race, finishing in front of Tim Webster and Mark Thorpe. World champion Toby Collier was 8th. It was more of the same in the final heat. Lazage again too strong and a deserved world champion, having won 8 of the 11 heats, his worst finish being 7th. Meantime, Queensland's Chris Storr will start favourite for the World NACRA Catamaran Championships after winning the national title on Lake Macquarie today. Storr was one of 4 Queenslanders to win their respective classes, with New South Wales' only success being local Steve Bruin in the 14 squares.
Some people were able to get to their boat. A small craft was saved for holiday boating activities. More than 20 teenagers found themselves in difficulties after their big rush to the scene. Along with the Westpac helicopter, numerous lightning strikes that set off fire alarms, calling out fire brigade units.
Originating in Britain in 1955, more than 5 million of these little cars have appeared. Once a symbol of the swinging young Australia, it is still as popular today. Recently, some 80,000 enthusiasts packed a race circuit in the UK for anniversary celebrations. The idea for the Mini was born on the drawing boards of the designer Sir Alec Isigonis to meet a need for a small, fuel-efficient car. Dr. Alex Moulton is one of the original design team. A British driving champion has nothing but praise for the fun-loving motoring icon.
The Mini's greatest attributes are its agility and manoeuvrability, as well as being so much fun to drive.
Today, the Mini is a legend. Once it was the very height of fashion. It's also been a global success. Currently, 1 in 3 new Minis are sold in Japan. And for those who find small not so beautiful, introducing an American modification, the Mini Sota. 35 years on, and despite the lack of modern-day conveniences such as power steering, Mini lovers say it just adds to the charm. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Most of the region escaped serious damage, but there were some close calls, with nobody injured after this giant gum was blown onto a backyard fence in Charlestown, falling only metres from an occupied house. Lake Macquarie had the most widespread damage, with some boats overturned and others washed ashore. At first, it was thought some sailors may have been stranded on the lake, but an extensive search by emergency services found that nobody was missing. Road users drove sensibly in the conditions, with no reports of major accidents.
A capacity field took to the Morisset layout this morning, all to raise money for local Greg Horn. Included one of Australia's premier golfers, Craig Parry, who took time out from his busy international schedule, along with the spirited Jack Newton.
It's good. We've got a nice roll-up of people here today. Newts and Rick McCosker as well, and everyone's putting in their time and their effort, and hopefully we can raise a fair bit of money for Greg.
Making up that 4-ball was Greg's nervous father Joe, who, given the illustrious company, was elated just to negotiate the first tee. But it was Greg who sported the biggest smile, a reserve golf fan till now, with a new idol.
You've been a bit of a Parry fan?
Oh, I am now. Yeah.
But the accolades weren't just reserved for Parry. Newton, himself no stranger to adversity, chauffeured the 17-year-old round the course.
This is pretty inspiring to see people come out for you and that, so brings you along a fair bit.
There was further inspiration on the first, with Newton upstaging his playing partners, draining this putt for a magnificent birdie. Organisers of the event were hopeful of raising more than $6,000 to assist Greg. The strong southerly produced choppy conditions for this afternoon's Stella Kappa. Swansea too strong for Redhead and Cooks Hill in the 9-club carnival. But the host club Cooks Hill took out the handicap honours ahead of Fingal and Redhead, which tied for second. Meantime, further south, 150 surfers braved similar conditions for the 15th Catherine Hill Bay Surf Classic. Day 1 saw several heats in 3 divisions contested, with the final series starting tomorrow morning.
Contractors are filling the gaping hole that appeared under this Wall's End house. The Mine Subsidence Board was called to the Fletcher Street address on Saturday when the owners discovered a 75-centimetre pothole in their front yard.
And it's fallen in possibly by the action of water in the recent rains into the mine workings below. Those mine workings are approximately 18 metres below this house.
A fleet of trucks is expected to cart around 250 tonnes of quarried rock to fill the hole. Located over a borehole seam mining area worked out around a century ago, subsidence isn't unexpected here. However, the authorities say a collapse on this scale is uncommon. A hole this size would normally have disastrous consequences for any structure, but this house has managed to ride it out. The foundation design follows Mining Subsidence Board building guidelines, and they've kept damage to an absolute minimum.
The house is built with Mine Subsidence Board beam footings, and as you can see, the beam adequately spans a hole, and that's what it's designed for, so it's done the job very well.
The family who owns the house is being accommodated in a motel until the home is made safe, a project that should be completed later this week. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
As part of Taree Council's waste management strategy, the weighbridge at the Buckets Way site is now operational. It will determine the charges for vehicles with large loads.
It's based on a user pays principle, where people will be charged according to the vehicle type and also to the density and the quantity of material.
The charges will be implemented next Monday. For cars it will cost $2 per load, utes $4 and large vehicles $26 per tonne. There will be no charge for clean fill material or recyclables such as glass, PET plastics, paper, cardboard and cans.
Council has already provided a complimentary waste disposal card to ratepayers receiving a garbage service, and this will entitle the cardholders to 6 free services throughout the year.
For those outside the council's wheelie bin collection area, there is a waste disposal card available entitling the holder to 52 visits for $35. Tracy Walsh, NBN News. Other clubs in this season's competition have been reluctant to give the newly formed Taree Rugby League club a chance to play. Taree United and Taree Old Bar had amalgamated to better their chances of inclusion this season, and putting years of rivalry aside, the combined club approached the Group General Committee. At a meeting last night it was put to the vote, and 27 members were in favour of Taree playing, while 18 were against a 12th club in the competition. While winning the vote, the club fell 5 votes short of the required 2/3 majority.
I don't think we're being given a fair go by the General Committee. I mean, they're the ones that are voting on it. If they had the interest of rugby league at heart, they would already have included us in the competition.
The group secretary says the executive and the town is behind the Taree club.
The Taree application had no detriment to any club in the competition, and I for one can't see why it's not a goer.
Determined to play, the Taree club is appealing to Country Rugby League. With club representatives and Group 3 executives, a meeting is due in the next week.
I'm starting to lose a little bit of optimism, but I certainly think that we're going to follow it right through to the end, so that if fairness and a bit of common sense will ever prevail, we will be included.
There were tense moments at post offices. Others chose to wait for the news to come to their front door. For 18-year-old Virgil Chan, a student at Merewether High's selective school, his TER score of 99.9 was equal first in the Hunter.
I just stood there. I didn't know what to think, what to do. I didn't say anything.
Virgil is planning to begin medicine at Newcastle University and believes he's found the secret to a successful study program.
I went out heaps. I went out a lot. I believe studying with a balance, and I go out a lot with my friends, and I study effectively when I'm not with my friends, and I think that's the best thing to do.
Also taking his place on the region's honours list is St Francis Xavier's Timothy Radvin. The 17-year-old joins Muswellbrook High's Scott Nightingale to form the winning trio, left wondering about that 0.1 of a mark.
That's what I've been wondering. I have to find out, but I'm not really worried at the moment, no.
11 Hunter students made it into the state's top 1%. While the Education Department has praised the results, it's also catering for those forced to change their original career paths.
Those, of course, who have been totally devastated or may feel that they need to look at some alternatives, they, of course, can come in and gain advice.
HSC advisory centres have been set up at CES offices across the region.
This is the form that has the Knights coaching staff so excited. The young rugby convert to give some muscle to the Knights outside backs.
He's 6'1", he's 96 kgs, fair amount of pace, does the basics right.
The Tongan has played most of his senior football in New Zealand, representing Auckland for the past 3 seasons, and he's also played for the under-21 All Blacks team. Despite his size and skills, coach Malcolm really doesn't expect instant success, with the 24-year-old having to adapt to rugby league after years of playing union.
Well, we've got to look a little bit further down the track than just this year, you know, and this is basically what we're trying to do. It may take Johnny a full season to learn the game.
The signing follows the recruitment of 2 Fijian players. Seka Sofatabua provides added depth to the back line, Sam Marawa to give some mobility to the forwards. The club says it's continuing to look for rugby recruits, but many players are waiting until squads are chosen for the World Cup to be held in South Africa later this year. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
At first light, scientific police examined the body, believed to be that of a 40-year-old local man. The owner of the Minimbar Road property discovered the body around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
He was driving his tractor through the paddock behind us, and he became aware of an odour. He thought it was a dead animal on the property. He investigated and found the body of a deceased male.
Police searched the area around the creek. Traces of petrol were found on the driveway near the badly burned body. Police believe the death occurred around a week ago. State emergency crews were required to remove the body of the 40-year-old from the creek.
We're looking at all avenues, but we'll find out more after we have a post-mortem.
Foster detectives will make further inquiries in an effort to establish an identity. They believe the man may have been living in the area.
Trading jobs for a day, local member Peter Blackmore tried his hand at welding at the Hunter Valley Training Company's workshop. While his lesson was only short, 12 school leavers will soon undergo a 6-month government-funded training program in metals and fabrication trades. The state government claims there's been a 12% increase in the number of apprentices during the past year, taking the state total to nearly 15,000.
There had been a general decline as far as their willingness to accept apprenticeships, and a lot of industries have looked to the government to say, well, give us that support. So the government today is following up that support, giving that commitment for training, which in turn leads to apprenticeships for these younger people out there in that community.
The Hunter Valley Training Company employs 129 apprentices, 43 new ones this year alone. The scheme will provide the first steps towards gaining a full-time job.
What it means is that after this training period, I believe that every one of them will be offered an apprenticeship, which will take them on for the next 4 years and bring them out as first-class tradesmen and tradeswomen.